For 20 years, my mother cried over a grave that was never mine. Everyone believed I was dead, even me. But last month, the phone rang, and when she picked up, she heard my voice. That call didn't just bring back her son, it opened a door to a secret someone buried long ago. This is the story of how I discovered the truth behind my own death. I was 10 years old the night I died, or at least, that's what everyone believed. It was raining so hard I could barely see the road through the windshield. My mom's hands were tight on the steering wheel, her knuckles white, her lips trembling as she kept whispering, "It's going to be okay, baby. It's going to be okay." But it wasn't. The headlights of a truck appeared out of nowhere, blinding, fast, unstoppable. There was a crash, metal screaming, glass shattering, then darkness swallowing everything. I remember waking up for just a second, lying on cold ground, the sound of rain hitting my face. I tried to move, to call for my mom, but my voice wouldn't come out. And then I heard someone say, "This one's still breathing." After that, nothing. When I woke up again, I wasn't in a hospital. It was a small room, no windows, just a flickering light above me. My body hurt everywhere. My head felt like it was split open. A man I'd never seen before was sitting in a chair beside me. He had a calm face, almost too calm, and when he saw my eyes open, he smiled like he'd been waiting. "You're safe now," he said. "You had an accident. Your family didn't make it. I'm sorry." I stared at him, confused, terrified. My mom? My dad? Where were they? But before I could ask, he added quietly, "You're going to start a new life. It's better this way." That's when I knew something wasn't right. He gave me a new name, Ethan, told me to forget everything else. And when I cried, asking for my mom, he grabbed my shoulder so hard it made me stop breathing. "You don't have a mother anymore," he whispered. "Do you understand?" I nodded, because I was too scared not to. The next few weeks were a blur. I was moved from one place to another. An old house, a basement, sometimes a car that drove through the night. Everywhere we went, the man told me the same thing. "No one must know you're alive." He said bad people were looking for me. He said my family was gone because of them. I believed him. I was a kid. Then one day he brought me to a woman. She looked kind at first glance, but her eyes were cold. She smiled, handed me a plate of food and said, "Welcome home, son." Her name was Diane, but she made me call her mom. I didn't understand then, but now I know she wasn't my savior. She was part of it. Years passed. I went to school, learned to live as Ethan. But something inside me was wrong. I didn't belong there. Every night I'd dream about my real mother's face, her hands, her voice calling my name. Not Ethan, but Daniel. That's my real name, Daniel Reese. Every year, I'd wake up around the same time, the anniversary of the crash, with this pain in my chest, like I was being buried alive. I didn't know why. I didn't know that somewhere out there, my real mother was standing over a grave with my name carved into the stone. When I turned 18, I found an old newspaper article hidden in Diane's desk. The headline read, "Local boy killed in car crash, body recovered and identified." There was a picture of me. I froze. I read it again and again, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. But the photo, the necklace I wore, it was me. My stomach turned. That's when I realized they didn't just lie to me. They lied to her too. Someone made my mother bury a child who wasn't me. Someone made her live 20 years believing I was dead. The next morning, I confronted Diane. I held the article in my shaking hands. "What is this?" I shouted. "Who am I really?" She didn't even look surprised. She just sighed and said, "You weren't supposed to find that." "Tell me," I screamed. "Where's my real mom?" Her face hardened. "Your mother is gone, Daniel. She's been gone a long time. You should be grateful you're alive." But I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear. That's when I knew. She was hiding something big, something that could destroy her. That night, I searched through every drawer, every box in the house. And in one of the old storage bins in the attic, I found a phone. It was old, dusty, but taped to the back was a SIM card. On it, one single contact was saved. It said, "Mom." My hands shook as I slid the card into my phone. The number still worked. For the first time in 20 years, I was staring at the name of the woman who had loved me enough to bury me. I didn't know if she'd answer. I didn't know if she'd believe me. But I knew I had to try. So I took a deep breath. Anne pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. And then someone picked up. For a second, there was only silence. I could hear faint breathing, shaky, uncertain. Hello? It was a woman's voice. Soft, older, tired. My heart stopped. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I'd waited 20 years for this moment, and now that it was here, I couldn't speak. Hello? Who is this? She asked again. I finally whispered, Mom, it's me. There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. And then I heard something I hadn't heard in 2 decades. Her sob. A sound that cut through me like glass. Who is this? She said again, but her voice was trembling now. Who's playing this joke? It's me, I said, tears flooding my eyes. It's Daniel. The line went silent. I thought maybe she'd hung up, but then she whispered my name again. Daniel? Like she was afraid to believe it. Her breathing became unsteady, mixed with sobs and disbelief. Daniel, my baby. They told me you were gone. I buried you. I saw your grave. I know, I said softly. They lied to you. They lied to both of us. We talked for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. She kept asking me questions, things only her son would know. What was the name of our dog? What song did she sing to me when I couldn't sleep? What was my favorite cereal when I was little? I answered every one of them. And when I told her the last one, Honey Crunch, only on Saturdays, she started crying again. That's you, she whispered. Oh my God, it's really you. I wanted to tell her everything, but I didn't know where to begin. She wanted to see me, to hold me, to touch my face, to make sure I was real. But I couldn't risk it, not yet. Because as I spoke, I noticed something strange. A faint clicking noise on the line, like someone else was listening. Every few seconds, a static pop, soft but rhythmic. Someone was tracing the call. Mom, I said quickly, I can't talk long. There's something you need to know. They faked my death. Someone did this to us. Who? She asked, her voice breaking. Who would do that? I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're still watching. Please, don't tell anyone I called. But Daniel, promise me, I cut her off. Please, I'll find you soon. I just need to figure out what they're hiding. I could hear her crying again, whispering my name over and over as I hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, shaking, breathing hard. I'd found my mother, but now someone knew I was alive. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt wrong. Every creak, every shadow. Diane was downstairs, humming like nothing had happened. But I couldn't stop replaying that call in my head. Her voice, her sobs, the truth. Finally out there, even if only between us. But the part that scared me most was the clicking sound. It meant someone was still controlling this story. And if they'd gone this far to hide me once, they wouldn't hesitate to do it again. The next morning, I noticed Diane's behavior had changed. She didn't say good morning, she didn't smile, she just stared at me like she knew something. When I sat down at the kitchen table, there was a phone sitting in front of me, the same one I'd found last night. Where did you get this? She asked. My heart nearly stopped. I found it in the attic, I said, trying to sound casual. She leaned closer. Did you use it? I swallowed hard. No, I was just cleaning. Why? Her eyes stayed on me for a long time, searching for something. Then she smiled, that cold, perfect smile that used to scare me as a kid. Good, she said softly, because that phone doesn't work anymore. But I knew she was lying. There was a tone in her voice, a warning. She knew. Later that night, I went to my room and locked the door. I checked my phone. The call history was gone, deleted. Someone had erased it remotely. And when I checked again, I noticed something else. A text message I didn't remember sending. It said, "We need to talk. Don't call again." And it was sent to my mother's number. My blood ran cold. I hadn't sent that message. I realized then that I wasn't just a survivor of someone's plan. I was still a part of it. Someone wanted to control the story, even now. Someone was afraid of the truth coming out. So I made a choice. I packed a small bag, some cash, my phone, a photo of my mom from the newspaper archive, and at midnight, I left the house for the first time in years. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. As I walked down the dark street, I whispered to myself, "They buried me once. They won't do it again." I didn't know it yet, but that night was only the beginning, because the man who had taken me, the one who'd made my mother believe I was dead, was still out there, and he wasn't done with us yet. The night air was cold, sharp, and full of noise. Every sound, a barking dog, a distant engine, the crunch of my shoes on wet gravel, felt amplified. It had been 20 years since I'd walked alone like this, and yet it felt both familiar and foreign, like a dream I'd been forced to forget. I didn't have a destination. I just knew I needed to move, to get away, to think. I found a rundown motel by the highway, the kind of place where nobody asks for names or IDs. They just take cash and hand you a key. Room 12. The air inside was thick with dust and cigarette smoke. The wallpaper peeled in strips, but it was safe, at least for now. I sat on the bed, opened my bag, and pulled out the only thing that truly mattered, a folded newspaper clipping I'd kept hidden for years. It was from the day they had declared me dead. Local teen found dead after fire. Body identified as Daniel Harrison. Only, the photo printed beside the headline wasn't me. The boy looked like me. Same hair, same eyes. But there was something wrong, something off. His smile was crooked, unfamiliar, his face thinner. I'd never questioned it before because I'd never seen the paper until years later, when I escaped. But now, looking closer under the motel's yellow light, I noticed something chilling. Behind the boy in the photo, standing in the background, was a man, a tall figure in a dark coat, half turned from the camera. His hand rested on the boy's shoulder. And even though the photo was grainy and old, I recognized that hand. I'd seen it in my nightmares, the same hand that had dragged me into a van 20 years ago. My breathing quickened. I grabbed my phone, the burner I'd bought months before I dared to contact Mom. I zoomed into the photo, enhancing it as much as the screen allowed. The man's face was blurred, but part of a name tag was visible on his coat. Dr. P. That's when a memory struck me like lightning. The hospital, the night of the fire. I remembered smoke, sirens, and chaos. I was only 16. I'd been sick, something with my lungs, and my mom had brought me to St. Helena's Hospital. There was a man in a white coat who told her to go home and rest. "We'll keep him overnight," he said. She kissed my forehead, said she loved me, and left. But that night, I woke up choking on smoke. I remember screaming, banging on the door, but no one came. And then a hand, that same hand, pulled me out of bed and whispered, "You're coming with me now, Daniel." I tried to fight, but the smoke filled my lungs, and everything went black. When I woke up, I wasn't in a hospital anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere cold, somewhere underground. I stared at the photo again, trembling. That man, Dr. Fee, wasn't just someone from the past. He was the reason I disappeared. But why? Why fake my death? Why keep me alive? I needed answers. I started searching online, typing St. Helena's Hospital staff 2005, old articles, employee records, anything. And then I found it, a medical board report from years ago. Dr. Peter Lang, suspended for unethical research practices. Missing since 2006. My stomach dropped. That was him. That was the man. The next day I decided to go back to where it all began. The hospital had burned down years ago, but the ruins still stood on the outskirts of town, a skeleton of brick and ash. When I arrived, fog rolled over the old parking lot. The building looked like it was bleeding, charred black, glass shattered, windows hollow like dead eyes. I walked inside, flashlight trembling in my hand. Every step echoed. Ash crunched beneath my boots. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. Something to tell me I wasn't crazy. But as I moved deeper into the hallways, I realized the place wasn't empty. There were footprints in the dust. Fresh ones. I froze. Someone else had been here, recently. Then, a sound, a metallic clang. Something had dropped in one of the rooms ahead. I turned off my light, my heart hammering in my chest. I crept closer, peering around the doorframe. Inside, a man stood near an old metal cabinet, flashlight in hand. He wore a dark coat, same build, same presence as the man in the photo. I felt my throat tighten, my fingers trembled. "Dr. Lang," I whispered before I could stop myself. He turned. The light caught his face, older now, wrinkled, but those same eyes, cold, calculating. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then he smiled. "Daniel," he said calmly, like we just bumped into each other after all these years. "You found me. Every instinct told me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. How are you alive?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "Why did you do this to me?" He sighed, stepping closer. "Because you were supposed to die, Daniel, but you didn't. You were special." "Special?" I spat. "You destroyed my life." "You wouldn't understand," he said softly. "Not yet. But your mother, she would." He reached into his coat pocket and tossed something to the ground. It clattered, a small silver locket. I bent down to pick it up. It was my mother's, the one she used to wear every day. "How did you get this?" I whispered. He smiled again. "She's known the truth all along." And before I could say another word, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone in the burned remains of my past. I stood there, clutching the locket, my heart racing, my mind spinning. What did he mean? My mom knew? No, she couldn't have. She buried me. She cried for me every year. But as I turned the locket over in my hand, I saw something scratched into the back, initials that weren't hers. P.L. Dr. Peter Lang. The world around me tilted. The air grew thin. My mother's voice from last night echoed in my head, her hesitation, her fear, her trembling words. Maybe she wasn't just a victim after all. I drove for hours that night, headlights cutting through the fog like a blade. The locket sat on the passenger seat beside me. My mother's locket, the one I hadn't seen since the night I disappeared. I kept turning it in my hand, feeling its weight, its cold metal edge biting into my palm. The initials on the back were burned into my mind. P.L. Peter Lang. My thoughts raced in circles, colliding, shattering, rebuilding again. If Dr. Lang had my mother's locket, did that mean she'd seen him after I was gone? Did she know he was alive? Did she help him? The road blurred past, but all I could hear was his voice. "She's known the truth all along." When I finally reached her house, dawn was breaking, the kind of cold gray light that makes everything feel fragile and unreal. The curtains were closed, the porch light still on. Her car sat in the driveway. She was home. I stood at the door for a long time, my hand hovering above the bell. "How do you ask your mother if she helped fake your death?" I finally knocked, and when the door opened, she looked like she hadn't slept since our call. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You came back." I wanted to hug her. God, I wanted to. But something held me back. That locket in my pocket burned like fire. "Can I come in?" I asked quietly. She nodded and stepped aside. The house smelled the same. Coffee, cinnamon, the faint trace of the lavender candles she always burned. Everything looked frozen in time. My photos were still on the wall. My school picture, my football trophy, the graduation cap I never got to wear. She made tea. Her hands shook as she poured it. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," she said softly. "I know," I replied. "You weren't supposed to." She looked up. "What do you mean?" I took the locket from my pocket and slid it across the table. "Do you recognize this?" Her eyes widened. She stared at it for a long time, her lips trembling. "Where did you get that?" "From him," I said. "Dr. Lang." The color drained from her face. For a moment, she didn't speak. She just sat there, frozen, staring at the locket like it was a ghost. Then, quietly, she whispered, "He found you." I leaned forward. "So you do know him?" Tears filled her eyes. She looked older than I remembered, tired, haunted. "Yes," she said finally. "I knew Peter Lang, but not the way you think." "Then tell me," I said. Tell me everything." She took a deep breath. Her voice trembled as she began. "When you were little, you were always sick. The doctor said you wouldn't make it past 10. But then Peter came into our lives. He was brilliant, kind. He said he could help you. He claimed he was testing a treatment that could fix your lungs permanently." I listened, barely breathing. "I was desperate," she continued. "So I agreed. You started getting better, stronger. But then I found out his research wasn't legal. He was experimenting on children without proper trials. When I confronted him, he said if I told anyone, he'd make sure you'd disappear." I clenched my fists. "And then the hospital fire happened." She nodded slowly. "I thought he died that night, but then I started getting letters, anonymous ones, saying you were alive, that you were part of something bigger. I wanted to believe it, but the police said it was impossible, that your body was found. I tried to move on, but the letters never stopped." She got up and walked to a drawer, pulling out a stack of yellowed envelopes tied with a red string. Each one was addressed to her. No return name, no address. I opened one. Inside was a photo. Me, older, sitting in a sterile white room, staring at the floor. Dated 6 years after my supposed death. My heart stopped. It was real. Proof. "He was keeping me somewhere," I whispered. "He was watching me." My mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know what to do. Every time I tried to find you, someone would call. They told me to stop, that I'd lose you forever if I didn't. I was terrified." Her words hit me like a hammer. "All these years," I said bitterly, "you knew I might be alive, and you never came for me?" She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. "I tried, Daniel, I tried, but they were everywhere. They knew everything I did." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The air was thick with everything we'd both lost. And then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Daniel, the last letter came just a month ago." I stared at her. "What?" She nodded. "Before you called me. It said, 'The project is almost complete. Prepare him.'" My hands trembled. "Prepare me for what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the fireplace and pulled out a small metal box hidden behind the logs. Inside was a photo, newer, clearer, of Dr. Lang standing beside a group of men in lab coats. Behind them, a large white banner with the words, "Lang Biogenetics." And right there, in the corner of the picture, was me. At least someone who looked exactly like me. I stepped back, my head spinning. "That's not possible," I whispered. "That's not me." She looked up at me, her face pale, voice shaking. "I don't think it is you. I think they made another one." I felt the floor tilt under me. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. "They cloned you, Daniel," she said. "They cloned my son." Everything inside me collapsed in that moment. Every memory, every fear, every sleepless night. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was evidence. Evidence of something that was never meant to exist. I stared at the photo again. The other me looked hollow, empty, but alive. And then I realized that was the boy in the newspaper photo 20 years ago. The one they buried, the one she mourned. The fake me had died, but the real me had lived in the shadows ever since. I turned to my mother. "Where is he now?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Lang took him, the clone, back when the fire happened, said it was part of the research. I never saw him again, until those pictures started coming." My voice shook. "Then we have to find him. We have to end this." She nodded slowly, fear flickering in her eyes. "There's one place he always mentioned, a facility outside Chicago. He called it Haven. That's where it started. That's where it'll end." As I walked out of that house, the locket in my pocket felt heavier than ever. For 20 years, I thought I'd lost everything, but the truth was worse. I'd been stolen, and now I was going to take my life back. No matter who tried to stop me, the road to Chicago felt endless, a ribbon of asphalt vanishing into gray mist. Mom sat in the passenger seat beside me, clutching that stack of old letters like they were a lifeline. Neither of us spoke much. There were no words left that could fix 20 years of pain. Every few miles, she'd glance at me, like she was still trying to convince herself I was real. And honestly, I wasn't sure I was either. I had been buried, erased, rewritten. And now I was going back to the place where it all began, to face the man who'd stolen my life. By sunset, we reached a small town on the outskirts of Chicago. The GPS showed nothing. No roads, no listings, but Mom's letters had mentioned a name again and again. Haven Biotech. Not a public company. Not registered anywhere official. But if Lang was still alive, that's where he'd be. We parked behind an abandoned factory half a mile from the coordinates. From a distance I saw it. A cluster of white buildings behind electric fences, half hidden in the woods. Security cameras, guard towers, motion sensors. "This isn't a hospital," I whispered. "It's a fortress." Mom nodded slowly. "He always said he was protecting something important." She turned to me, tears welling in her eyes. "Daniel, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," I said. "He took everything from us. I need to see it for myself." We waited until midnight. The air was freezing, thick with fog. I cut through the fence with an old wire cutter and slipped inside. Mom stayed behind, hidden in the trees. The ground crunched under my boots. I moved through the shadows, heart pounding, every sound amplified. My breath, the hum of the power lines, the faint click of cameras. When I reached the main building, I found a side door left slightly open. Someone had been here recently. Inside, everything was too clean, too sterile. White walls, bright lights, a hallway stretching endlessly forward. I moved silently, following the faint echo of voices down the hall. Behind one glass window, I saw them. People in lab coats, hunched over monitors. I pressed my hand against the glass and felt the vibration of machinery humming deep underground. A large sign above the lab read, "Project Haven, Genetic Reclamation Program." Then I saw it. The name burned into my brain. Subject 01, Daniel Harrison. But there was another line below it. Status, active. I froze. Active? That couldn't be right. I was subject 01. So, what was still active? A loud sound snapped me out of it. The door opening at the far end of the hallway. I ducked into a storage room, heart racing. Through the crack in the door, I saw him. Dr. Peter Lang, older now, slower, but still wearing that same calm smile. He walked beside a younger man, tall, dark hair, broad shoulders. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something about his walk, his posture, it was mine. They stopped just a few feet from me. Lang's voice was calm, almost fatherly. "He's close. I can feel it." The original Daniel always was too curious for his own good. The younger man laughed quietly, my laugh. It was like hearing an echo from another life. I had to see him. I had to see the thing they'd made. When they turned a corner, I followed, keeping my steps light and fast. They entered a large observation room filled with monitors and medical beds. And there, in the center of the room, I saw him, the other me. He was strapped to a chair, tubes running from his arms, machines beeping softly beside him. But his eyes were open, empty, hollow. Dr. Lang leaned over him, adjusting something on the monitor. The younger man, my copy, stood silently beside him, watching. Lang spoke softly. "You've done well, Daniel, too. Soon you'll be free of the original. His mind is the last piece we need." I felt the world tilt around me. He wasn't cloning me. He was merging us. A metal cart beside me held medical files. I grabbed one and scanned the top page. Project notes. Transfer complete. Phase 4 begins. Neural convergence required to stabilize Subject 01 memory integrity. Neural convergence. They weren't trying to replace me. They were trying to erase me. "Daniel!" The voice came from behind me, soft, trembling. I spun around. It was my mother. She'd followed me in. "What are you doing here?" I hissed. "You shouldn't be—" Before I could finish, Lang turned toward the sound. His eyes widened when he saw us. "Well," he said, smiling, "the family reunion I've been waiting for." He raised a small remote and pressed a button. An alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the hallways. Guards poured in through the doors. "Run!" I shouted. pulling Mom behind a table as bullets shattered glass. She screamed as sparks flew from the machines. I grabbed a fallen guard's keycard and dragged her toward a side exit. We stumbled into another hallway, this one darker, colder, lined with metal doors. Each door had a number, 01, 2, 3, dozens of them. Behind one window, I saw faces, people who looked like me, copies, hundreds of them. My mother covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He didn't stop with you." I turned to her, voice shaking. "We have to destroy this place." She nodded, eyes blazing. "Then let's finish what he started 20 years ago." We found the main power room. I ripped open a panel, sparks flying, alarms wailing louder. Mom found a gas line and twisted the valve open. As we ran toward the exit, I heard Lang shouting behind us. "You can't stop evolution, Daniel. You are evolution." I turned back once, locking eyes with him. "For 20 years, I thought I was your experiment," I said. "But I'm not. I'm your mistake." And I hit the switch. The explosion tore through the facility like a scream. The shockwave threw us to the ground, flames ripping through the corridors. I grabbed Mom and pulled her outside just as the building collapsed behind us. We stumbled into the trees, coughing, gasping for air. The sky burned orange behind us. Somewhere in that inferno, Dr. Lang's voice echoed one last time, faint, distorted. "See you soon, Daniel." Then silence. We watched the flames for a long time. Neither of us spoke. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was dread, because deep down, I knew it wasn't over. If there were dozens of copies in those rooms, how many more were out there? And what if the real Daniel Harrison wasn't me anymore? Mom turned to me, her voice soft, shaking. "You did the right thing," she said. I looked at her, then back at the burning ruins. "I'm not sure," I whispered, "because if I destroyed him, I might have destroyed a part of myself too." When I walked out of that police station, the morning light felt unreal. Cold air hit my face like I was breathing for the first time in 20 years. My name, my real name, was finally mine again. But I didn't feel free. Not yet. Mom was waiting for me outside, her hands shaking, eyes red but alive. She looked smaller than I remembered, older too. When our eyes met, the world went silent. No sirens, no city noise, just her whisper. "Ethan, is it really you?" I wanted to say something clever, something comforting. But all that came out was a broken sound, half a laugh, half a sob. She reached out, touched my face, and gasped like she was touching a ghost. "I buried you," she whispered. "I put flowers on your grave every year." "I know," I said, my voice cracking. "But you never stopped looking. That's how I found you." We stood there for a long time, just holding on. It wasn't the perfect reunion. It was messy, painful, and real. And for the first time in 2 decades, I felt human again. The investigation took months. The truth was darker than any of us could have imagined. My father's death had been orchestrated by Mark, his own brother, for insurance money and control of the family business. When I saw something I shouldn't have, Mark staged my death, swapped my identity, and sold me into an illegal adoption ring. They erased my name, my past, my mother. I became someone else, raised to forget. But memory has a way of bleeding through the cracks. The old phone number I dialed wasn't random. It was muscle memory, a part of me that never died. When the police finally arrested Mark, he didn't fight. He looked at me and said, "You were supposed to stay gone." I stared back and told him, "You buried the wrong son." Those were the last words I ever said to him. A year has passed since then. Mom and I visit the cemetery together now, not to mourn me, but to let go of the ghost we both carried. There's an empty grave with my name on it, and beside it, a new one with a plaque that reads, "The truth always finds its way home." Sometimes I stand there and wonder, who was the boy she buried? DNA said he was a local orphan, taken to replace me. Someone used that child to cover their sins, and that's the part that still keeps me awake at night. I've learned something, though. Death isn't just about losing breath. It's about losing your name, your story, your truth. And I was dead for a long time, but now I live every day like it's borrowed time, because somewhere out there, in that quiet graveyard, lies a boy who lost his chance, and I owe him my life. Last week, Mom changed her phone number. She said she wanted a fresh start, no more ghosts calling, but she kept one thing the same, the ringtone, the same sound she heard 20 years ago, the night she thought she lost me forever. And every time that tone rings, she smiles. Because now, she knows the sound doesn't mean loss anymore. It means her son found his way home.